Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is that you are watching this, and welcome to the latest edition of Cast Iron Bites. As I do these, I look for some of the most interesting and successful and impactful people in our space because I'm so interested and look to learn from them. And at the top of the list has always been Julia Usher. Julia, welcome to Cast Iron Bites. Pleasure to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. This is very exciting. I look forward to chatting with everyone here today.
Awesome. So, Julia, I've done a little bit of homework, and I'm going to read your bio, and then I'm going to ask you a couple questions after. And I had to. Your bio was so long, I had to keep going to find the short bio, the shorter bio, the shorter bio. And very impressed. So, um,
I tend to
and
be
I and our
verbose, so watch out. This might
no,
be a
it's pretty great. And I think uh, I'll say that one of the things we were talking about before we started recording is how many people are out there um, purporting to be experts on in this space and actually have and how many actually have the credentials to do what you do. So Julia is a world renowned sugar artist, most recognized for her pioneering work in 3D cookies. Julia is also the author of 2 books, 13 ebooks, and an app all about cookie decorating. When not spreading her love for cookie art in classes around the world, Julia has a very popular YouTube channel and website, oversees one of the largest, if not the largest, online community for cookie decorators called Cookie Connection. You design Cookie Julia brand. You have Julia Usher's Cookie Art Competition. You are the past president of the International Association of Culinary Professionals and winner of not one, but 2 James Beard Foundation Cordon d'Or, the gold medal. That's the right Cordon d'Or. Cake Masters Magazine, Taste and Edible Artists Global Academy Association, U.S. and International Sugar Artist of the Year Award. Everybody, Julia, and you can, and I'm gonna make sure I get your links in there, but juliausher.com and cookieconnection.juliausher.com. Julia, how do you describe what you do? How do
I
you
would,
introduce yourself?
I would say first and foremost, I'm a sugar artist. I like to define myself as a content creator. However, a big portion of what I do, some of what you just described, is associated with building the community and also fostering sort of the advancement of the state of cookie art. I'm very big on trying to encourage people to grow skills so that they're really advancing what we do, not simply staying static or not simply drawing on other people's work.
Hmm. Um, why is building the community important to you?
Well, in the past, this is like a third or fourth career reincarnation. In the past, I always worked in physical office spaces with people, and I had a really strong community. And today, some of those relationships I forged in those workplaces are some of my strongest relationships. Now I work online, which can be very solitary and very lonely. I kid you not, you're often in your own head, kind of second guessing. So for me, it was important to have a space where we could connect and talk and maybe share common fears or challenges and work together as a group to overcome them and just to build friendships. The cool thing about Cookie Connection, which is my community-based site, it's free, is I've got about 18,000 members. They come from all over the world. So it's a little bit more, it's a lot more, I should say, than a Facebook group because
Yeah.
Cookie Connection kind of came as Facebook was coming on board. Maybe even before there were Facebook groups. This has got a lot of resources for people. We do cookie decorating challenges, kind of a low stress form of advancing skills. We do interviews with established cookie artists. I feature cookie artists' work. I have contributors who write tutorials. So there's a lot of learning embedded in the site. It's indexed and organized and really easy to find, unlike
Right.
other forms of groups. So
I mean, I'm in Cookie Connection, and it is so authentic, and I've been in the internet space for a long time, since 1995, 1996, and I'm 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 still surprised, and I shouldn't be, by the power of the connection that can occur in these communities and how valuable and important they really are. Um, how much time do you spend on that? Is that a lot of your time?
well, the idea of it was for the community to create it. So, once I established the framework and platform was for the community to define what it wanted to be. My goal always was to be pretty far removed from it simply because, 90% of what I want to do, we can come to that point later. It's not currently what I do is to create my own stuff. But I would say it's morphed into a little bit more than that. Now I have a small contributor team. It's 3 or 4 people. So I spend some time managing them and their content. I still edit all of the content. Many of my writers are from other countries, or I should say a few are. And we write in English. So I spend some time just editing for grammar, not so much content. So I kind of see every piece of material that lands on the site. So I would say, and then there's the normal site maintenance that people don't know exists. Like this
Tell me
morning,
about it.
cleaned up like a bunch of new spam members, who were posting randomly to the site. So I would say I spend maybe 25% of my time, but my overall work time has kind of skyrocketed. So one of my challenges right now is kind of paring that back into something that's more focused and sustainable for me. I've been working at kind of a relentless pace, maybe for, I would say, ever since I started that site, basically. And something's got to kind of give at this point.
So tell us a little bit more about what you want to be doing with the rest of your time.
How I started in this space came after I closed. I had a physical bakery at one point here in St. Louis making wedding cakes. I wasn't doing cookies. And I closed that because of kind of the stress and unpredictability of managing a labor force in food service. It was hard on me. I'm not a great delegator. The staff was pretty unpredictable. I'd get them trained up and in a year they'd be gone. And we were doing some pretty stylish wedding cakes at the time. So I closed that shop. I wrote books, and then I quickly went into YouTube thinking I could create more freely there with that, unencumbered by editors, unencumbered by the book publishing process, which takes over a year to write a book typically. And so that's what I kind of started out doing in this space, which was just freely creating whatever I wanted to create. I didn't actually think much about who I was creating for. It was just like, I want to create these cool things. I was trying to do things that I thought were unique. And my YouTube channel really took off. And that's how I got recognized. That's how I started teaching. People really seemed to gravitate towards my cookies, particularly my dimensional ones. And that's how I kind of got channeled into this 3D cookie thing. I kind of like to be spending more time just freely creating, not necessarily for YouTube, but just clearing my head of some of the admin stuff I do that really drives me crazy, and just having more freedom to think clearly. I'm pretty encumbered right now by like lots of little tasks that are a lot of admin. So
well, it's interesting you say that because, well, for 2 reasons. One, my friends who are creative in my circle are constantly saying, how do I find time to express my creativity and produce creative works for their soul and their brains and how they think and organize. And then our customers who typically get into the business of selling cookies because making and selling cookies because they are creative and because they're good at it, and then find out that there's a lot more that goes with it, and how to do that. How do you help, or what do you see as good advice, things that you've learned in managing this that might translate to, Castiron customers or the viewers today who are struggling with the same thing? Super creative, talented, passionate, maybe overwhelmed, maybe spending time on other things. How do you help them, or what might you think?
Before I lose this thought, let me back up, because one of the things I found with my bakery was that you're not really free to it's really not creative freedom when you're running a retail bakery. You're really guided by what the customer wants, which sometimes is cool. A lot of times it's very repetitive. So one of the reasons I got out of serving customers was because I wanted that continual challenge. I really thrive on challenge of creating something new and different. I didn't want to be repeating the same ribbon cake that everybody gravitated towards in my photo album, So I made a conscious decision, and maybe this isn't for everyone, but I made a conscious decision to go into content creation, to go into online content creation, creating my own tutorials. They could be different every time. And they have a relatively short production time frame, whereas writing a book took me over a year. Putting out several videos, I can put out several videos in a year, and they continue to earn me money throughout the course of the year. And I'm always creating something. I want to create that is somewhat guided by what people have responded to in the past, but oftentimes is geared towards just challenging me and my soul personally.
Yeah.
So I think finding what works for you is key. I'm not afraid of experimenting. I guess that would be one tip, is try different things and find what works best for you. What really serves that emotional part. Um, as far as getting overwhelmed with admin tasks, this is something I'm struggling with right now. So I'm not sure I have the best advice, but these are some things I'm trying now. I am pretty much a control freak, pretty much a perfectionist, pretty much have a hard time delegating.
Yeah.
So right now I have, I don't know, 4 or 5 different things I do in this space, most of which I do 100% myself. People think they're emailing me and they're getting some team. Well, that team would be me. So I did this year. I recently, 3 months ago, hired a social media team because that's the thing I like doing the least. I really don't like to be out there tooting my own horn, which a lot of it is what that amounts to. I'm not particularly good at figuring out how to create content on the platforms on Instagram and Facebook in a way that's engaging anymore. I used to. I thought I had it figured out and everything's changed. And frankly, at this age, I'm kind of tired of chasing the algorithms and spending a lot of time on that. Social media can take me probably, easily anywhere from 4 to 5 hours a day. So
Mm.
I felt like I really needed, that's between answering emails, that's setting up posts, responding to comments that come from everywhere on social
Yeah.
media. So, and I pride myself on being responsive to people too. So anyway, I've hired this team. They've been 3 months at it. We'll see how that goes. In some ways, we're putting out more content than I was putting out, which is great. But I'm also spending more time than I was spending before editing and reviewing that content. So I'm not quite sure how
Yeah.
to weigh out. But
It,
I think when the business gets to a certain point where you have enough resources, you should definitely think about selectively like letting go, like
yeah.
let go of those things you don't like to do, because ultimately it's going to just sour the business and your whole perspective on it. So
That's
social
great.
I don't love it. So we'll see how this goes. I hope it's a release for me ultimately. We're still, I think, figuring things out.
Yeah. Experimentation and turning the dials to see what works.
Mhm.
I'm always talking about what did we learn today, and what
Right.
are we doing based on those learnings. So I just want to remind people that you can find Julia at juliausher.com, and the Cookie Connection is at cookieconnection.juliausher.com. Julia, what is the
Also say, on that experimentation point, people are often afraid of experimenting for fear of failure and like how that will be viewed. And things are so public now, also with social media. But I just, I would encourage people to kind of look at experimentation and trying things from the standpoint of learning and growth. As you said, you are going to fail. I failed with a lot of things. I don't publicize them so much, but they're all learning experiences, and they teach me a little bit. They've taught me a lot about how to structure my business going forward, things I like to avoid,
yeah.
types of partnerships I should avoid, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's really important. As an early stage company like Castiron, candidly, we fail all the time, right? And we fail publicly because people are running their businesses on our platform. Sometimes we fall short, hopefully not too often. And
Mhm.
each interaction is so important. And I'm so optimistic, and I'm always testing new things. And then I have to walk them back. And I'm sure some viewers know exactly the 7 examples in the last 18 months where I've done that. But like being open to learning every day, we get new information. And did it work, did it not work, what does the data tell us? So for your social media, now you're creating more content, you have more people doing it, but how are you measuring its success? I mean, certainly your psychic and emotional energy and activity, but like, is it achieving the results that you want it to achieve?
Is that a legit question? I mean,
No,
that's
I
actually,
mean,
yeah, that's something we try to evaluate every month. And I recently got feedback that I needed to lean towards shorter reels. And
but to what end? To
yeah,
drive more.
exactly. And so my reaction was, well, where's the data? Because my highest
Right.
performing reel is actually the longest one that we've posted lately. And then, is it bringing the desired outcome? Sure, people are watching it. This is one thing I'm really evaluating as I go through this process, because my end goal with all of this is to drive more revenue, drive more people to my tutorials, drive more people to my products.
Yeah.
and to, and to foster that community. But ultimately, I'm a business, and I can't just exist on fostering community. I do have to make some money, and I think people sometimes forget that. Um, so I am interested keenly in driving this into some uptick in revenue, and it's really unclear to me that added engagement, added following actually leads to that. Um, so anyway, I've got other
Well,
strategies for that too. But yeah,
yeah, it's interesting. This is the puzzle of building a business, and we I was just looking at our numbers this morning and where our traffic comes from. And our traffic comes from mostly from organic search and then organic social and
Mhm.
then, some of the advertising stuff that we do. And how does that turn into trials or purchases or engagement? And how do you trade off the value that you're creating? Because we mean to really create that value for our customers and for our community, but it's got to pay the bills. Um,
The other thing is I built a new site about a year, 2 years ago too, and it's really not easily found. So I've just embarked on a lot of SEO work. That's where I've brought in some search engine optimization. I've brought in some experts there to help me with that. But I've got to implement the recommendations yet because I'm not getting much through organic search. So this last year was one where I spent a lot of time on the business and not a lot of time creating, trying to optimize social media because I'd gotten kind of lazy there, trying to optimize the site performance, um, and trying to figure out what I'm doing with the different product lines and things I've got going. So I'm hoping this year can be more of a, okay, with that in place or that underway, let's have more time to create. I think I lost you audio wise. I can't hear you.
Uh, no.
Here we go.
Okay, great. Great, great,
Okay.
great. Okay. All right. So um, let's talk a little bit about the what's the most common advice that you give that you're asked for that you end up giving?
Oh, well, it depends on what type of advice, because there's like cookie advice and there's kind of business advice.
All right. How about one cookie and one business
Okay,
advice?
so cookie advice, it's always on icing consistency. Like, how did you achieve that look, or how come your icing is so smooth? So there are a lot of, because that's the hardest thing for beginners really to tackle, is getting that icing to the right consistency for each task. And there's a different consistency depending on the look you want to achieve. I spent a lot of time answering that type of question.
Yeah.
And my videos on YouTube address that, as well as most of my tutorials. Then business question, I guess I'll take one that I got recently from someone, which was really like, how do I succeed or make money in this space, in the cookie space I'm speaking of particularly, especially because it's gotten a lot more competitive. I mean, it's grown a lot, which is awesome. There are a lot of people decorating, and that's fun to see. But that also means there are a lot of people offering classes in person, tutorials, products. I was the only one I was one of few
Yeah.
really
Now it's
doing this when
everywhere.
I started several years ago, and the business is mushroomed. So, and it's attracting a lot of people, and a lot of people are wanting to make money in it. And I think there's enough to go around, but people often ask me what's the best approach, and I I don't have really a quick, straight answer for that. Oftentimes, I end up sharing things I've tried or experimented with and what has and has not worked for me. But a lot of people are different animals. Like, what motivates me may not motivate someone else. So people always have to kind of filter what I say through that prism of like what's important to me personally. So I have
Okay.
saved up a lot of money through this business. We also have a second income in the family. I'm less financially sensitive than others might be.
Mhm.
I'm really more interested in making sure I'm happy doing what I'm doing.
I think
However, I
yeah.
don't want to be spending time doing things that are losing me money or not 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 rewarding in a way that I think is commensurate with the amount of time that goes into it. The other thing about cookie decorating in particular, more so than cake decorating, I think, is it's extremely labor intensive. So
Yeah.
making money, making a cookie and selling it to a customer is a lot more challenging. It's much more labor intensive because you're hand decorating each individual portion as opposed to like a whole big cake.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more that goes into it. And I think that particular aspect of the business, selling cookies alone, it's extremely hard to make money in it. You know, to that point, I always recommend diversifying if people are interested in staying in the retail environment, not solely relying on decorated cookies. And as you can see from my personal choices, I'm no longer selling cookies. I'm selling something else related to cookies, which for me makes more money and it allows a little bit more creative freedom, as I explained before. So
Yeah. That's great. All right. So just to remind everybody, juliausher.com, cookieconnection.juliausher.com. We're to now, I mean, this is all my favorite part, but a little bit more fun, maybe a little bit more snappy, a little rapid fire. So, Julia, what is the best meal you've ever had?
I would say it was long ago. I went to a place in British Columbia called the Souk Harbor House. It no longer exists, but it was before farm to table or ocean to table because a lot of it was seafood we ate.
Yeah.
Actually existed. I'm also a big herb person. I grew up with a mother who cultivated herbs. They were in absolutely everything we ate. And so what was remarkable about this meal was there were tons of edible flowers and herbs and everything. Everything was fresh out of the water that, you know, just over the cliff because we were dining cliffside. So it was just absolutely beautiful. Everything about it, you know, from the environment through to the food. Just really enjoyed it. That was back in my 20s though. So that was long ago.
A few years ago. So I love that answer because it's not just what was on the plate, but I could see you're thinking about who you were with, where you were sitting, what it looked like, what the weather was, what it smelled like, the whole.
Yeah, I was with my boyfriend, who's now my husband, so that factored heavily into it. The place was pretty magical too, because it was an inn, and each of the rooms there, I mean, it was a whole experience because each of the rooms there was furnished by a local artist.
Oh wow!
So, each room was so gorgeous and completely unique. So, you know, we started by checking in, seeing this incredible space that, you know, the whole interior of our hotel room was laid with mosaic tile, which I have a fascination with. And then we go on to this pretty remarkable dinner. So it was definitely the whole experience in that case.
All right, awesome. Next question is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given in your life, and who gave it to you?
Okay, so it's advice I've been given by a few people, but most recently by a really good friend of mine. And she said, be kind to that Julia person. So, and her name is Michelle Hester. She's the owner of Sugar Veil. She's quite an entrepreneur, visionary in this space. She invented the first cake glaze that everyone has gone on to knock off. So really, truly a creative visionary. And she said that to me in the context of me struggling with some of these things, you know, not feeling like I'm doing enough for the community, not feeling like the work is measuring up, not feeling like I'm putting out enough to keep up with social media, a lot of self-doubts. And this comes back to the discussion we had earlier, or maybe we had it prior to recording, which is that, you know, in working as a solo person, you're often in your head kind of overthinking things. And so that was just a reminder to step back, kind of take a little breather, reflect on what I've accomplished, and just get out of that head space for a little bit. And so what I do when I get messages like that, because I'm particularly rough on myself, is I copy them and save them. So I've got like a little folder. It's not huge, but I've got a little folder of these really lovely and important messages, and I bring them out when I'm feeling kind of down or like I could be doing more. I'll pull them out and just remind myself, you know, what this person once said. So
be kind to that Julia. So the next question, which I think you just answered, was who inspires you? So it's Michelle Heston. Can you spell her name? I want to make sure I got it right.
Yeah, Michelle Hester, Hester. Sugar Veil. She's definitely been an inspirational factor in my life. We've collaborated on a lot of projects since. How did I get to know her? I guess it was back when I was starting out on my YouTube channel, and I was working with a group of decorators there doing collaborations where we take someone's product and see what we could create with it. And either she or I contacted her and said, how about we showcase Sugar Veil lace on our cookies? Because to that point, Sugar Veil lace had primarily been used on cakes. So that's what started it. We since have gotten together. We brainstormed. She was making a lot of silicone mats in which to lay the lace. We brainstormed some new designs, one being a needlepoint design, which is a basic grid pattern, but it allows you to do this particular decorating technique, which looks like needlepoint that people were in the past doing by hand. They were piping that grid, which was incredibly labor intensive. So we came up with this needlepoint grid to kind of hasten that process. That's since been knocked off a billion times over, but that she was the original. She and I were the original collaborators on that particular piece. So she's definitely an inspiration to me. I had a couple of other people too.
Sure.
One, I mean, it's not a person in the here and now, but a person who I feel like people may just shudder when I say this, but I'm going to say Martha Stewart, because she's somebody that went from being an intense solo creator to creating this empire, just really having an ability to delegate without tarnishing her reputation to a large extent.
How did she scaled her brand and her
scaled
mission?
this brand in a way that to me is like so incredible. I don't know that I could ever, I could never do that. So I hold that in very high regard. Even though today, you know, other people are creating for her, I just feel like she's found this place for her that really worked. On a more local front, I was going to put a shout out to Anna Olnick, Oliinyk, of Sunday Cookers. So she's a relatively young compared to me cookie artist. But the thing that's amazing about her story is she fled the Ukraine in the height of the war, settled in Austin, Texas. And I've not seen too many people with the combination of business sense and marketing kind of just know-how and skill, sheer skill. She's got a great combination. She uses them really effectively, and she's really a go-getter. So since being here, you know, she's just built a really nice business for herself, and she's received a number of American-based cookie awards. She's just beginning to be recognized kind of on the world cookie stage and on the American cookie stage, and I attribute a lot of it to her kind of relentless kind of going after it. And you know, that on top of like escaping kind of one of the most grim situations imaginable, traveling across the world with her family and uprooting herself entirely. I mean, how's that? How's that done?
It's so inspirational. Julia, this has been so delightful for me. I love hearing about more of the cookie side of the world than the business side sometimes, because my head naturally goes to my areas of strength. I eat a lot of cookies in this job. I don't make a lot of them. So I really, this is really helpful to me, and I feel stronger. I just want to share with you just a couple of notes that I took, because I'm taking so much from this conversation to stay focused on to make sure you understand what your motivations are and why you get up in the morning and why you sit down in front of your laptop or at your kitchen or wherever it is. Really understand that, because if you don't understand what you're trying to accomplish, then you can't accomplish it. You don't plan to fail. We fail to plan that. So that's really important. You talked a lot about finding happiness in that, whether that's your creative vision or paying the bills or connection with other people in this remote new world that we're living in. And then I really love be kind to that, Julia, because you're right. And I'm having a day today, a couple of days in a row, where I'm like, I'm working so well, not forget about I'm working so hard, but like, gosh, this is hard. And, you know, being really critical. But we're doing amazing things. And I got a great family. I got a great team. I love my customers. I love this space. I learn every day. Be kind to ourselves and be kind to others. Julia, thank you so much for this. JuliaUsher.com and cookieconnection.juliausher.com. And I'm going to reach out to Anna next. I'm going to do it right when I get off this call with you, because
hopefully she'll be thrilled, because the other thing I love to do is just encourage people beginning in the business, those especially who I see have particular talent. And so I do that through my cookie competition. I do that in other ways. And she's just somebody who has crossed my path and I've been impressed with. So
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to meet her. Julia, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.